The morning sun filtered through the office blinds, casting golden flecks across the immaculately clean desk. Amelia Carter sat at her computer, intently reviewing a report, when her phone buzzed. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. She rolled her eyes. What does he want now? Another reprimand? An attempt at manipulation? They had been living separately for a month, and the only thing that still connected them was the apartment they had once bought together. She hit the green button. Yeah? At first there was silence. Then his voice, cold, triumphant, dripping with self-satisfaction. I filed for divorce, and oh, I sold the apartment. So you'll need to find somewhere to live. Silence. Amelia couldn't grasp the meaning of his words for a moment. It was as if her brain refused to accept reality. What did you say? She asked, feeling her heart stop. Tyler chuckled. You heard right. I sold it. The deal is done. Papers signed. Consider yourself homeless. Her head spun. This must be some kind of nightmare. No, he couldn't have done this. He just couldn't. You couldn't have sold it without my consent, she said firmly, trying to keep her voice steady. Oh, sweetheart, are you sure about that? He mocked. Think you're that smart? You don't even look into the documents. Maybe I just outsmarted you? Suddenly he laughed, low, self-satisfied. Nicole and I need the money to start a new life. She deserves better than this pathetic place. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Nicole, the name of his mistress, hit like a slap. She had long suspected he was seeing someone. Late returns, secret messages, detachment. She saw it all but convinced herself it was a temporary crisis. But now the truth stood before her in all its starkness. She imagined the two of them, smirking, celebrating their victory, confident they had destroyed her. Tyler had always been like that, egotistical, cruel in his decisions, thinking he had people on a leash. You just threw me out on the street? She asked slowly, clenching her fists. Oh, don't be dramatic, I said. Just find yourself new accommodation. Maybe rent a room? Scrape together some pennies while I live in a bigger house with a better woman? This wasn't just betrayal, it was a demonstration of power. Tyler was reveling in it. Something inside her snapped. Her fingers tightened on the phone. He expected her to start crying, to beg, to fall into hysterics. But inside it suddenly went quiet. Not fear, not pain, anger, cold, dark, so strong that she wanted to laugh. How stupid he was, how wrong he was. She took a deep breath. Tyler, she said, her voice steady and icy, you've made the biggest mistake of your life. He scoffed. And what might that be? Amelia looked at the folder with documents lying on her desk, the one he never read. She wanted to scream with glee. You'll find out soon enough. She hung up, leaned back in her chair, and closed her eyes. No tears, no pain, just fury and excitement. Tyler thought he had her on her knees, but now the game was just beginning. The silence of the office was almost deafening. Amelia looked at her blank phone screen, her breathing steady, but inside everything was churning. She recalled their conversations over the past few months. Tyler always acted like he was one step ahead. His condescending looks, the casual smirk with which he responded to her questions. You're overthinking, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. I'll handle everything. It's not your concern, Amelia. You don't understand finances. She trusted. She never doubted that he was making decisions for their shared future. But he didn't just take advantage of her trust. He planned it from the very beginning. He thought she was weak, naive, convenient, someone easy to deceive, break, and discard like an unwanted toy. But he didn't know that the toy had sharp blades hidden inside. Amelia turned to the shelf and pulled out a thin folder. The document inside was her best weapon. She had registered the apartment in her name 6 months ago after refinancing. Tyler hadn't even bothered to read the papers when he signed them. He only saw the lower interest rate and asked no questions. He had given her absolute power over their home, and now he thought he had sold it? What an idiot. His signature on the sale meant nothing. The deal was invalid. He thought he had pulled the rug out from under her, but he had just stepped on a landmine. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. Ringing. Amelia, Chloe's voice came through, her friend and lawyer, a woman who knew all the loopholes in the law and had no tolerance for injustice. I need your help. As always, unrolling the superhero carpet. What happened? Tyler thinks he sold the apartment. Silence. What do you mean, thinks? Amelia chuckled, her fingers gripping the documents tighter. He signed a deal he had no right to make. The apartment is registered in my name. There was a laugh on the other end. Oh, girl, I almost feel sorry for the bastard. I don't. All right, then tell me everything. Amelia opened the folder and began to explain about how Tyler called her, laughing, about how he thought he had her in a trap, about how he didn't know he had fallen into one himself. When she finished, Chloe chuckled. All right, here's the plan. First, we send an official letter to the real estate agency, notifying them that the deal is invalid. Second, we contact the buyer. Third, we prepare a legal response for Tyler, so when he realizes he's screwed, he has no chance to wiggle out. Let's do it. Amelia felt a surge of excitement. She was ready for war. An hour later, an official notification was sent to the real estate agency via email. 2 hours later, Amelia received a call from their realtor. Miss Carter, I'm afraid there's a problem. No, you have a problem, she replied calmly. You tried to sell property that belongs to me. The man on the other end spent a few seconds in silence. We received documents from Mr. Brooks. Documents that have no legal force. We'll talk to the buyer. Please do. And tell Mr. Brooks that next time he tries to pull a stunt like this, he should study property laws better. She hung up. The first blow had been struck. Now it was Tyler's turn. Amelia sat at her desk, her hands no longer shaking. Only a few hours had passed since that call, but she felt like a completely different person. Her world was no longer crumbling. She was rebuilding it herself. Tyler thought he could erase her from his life, discard her like an unwanted item. But he didn't realize who he was dealing with. He wanted a war, he would get one. The day had barely begun when Amelia received the first call. Hello, is this Miss Carter? The man's voice held barely concealed anger. Yes, who is this? Mark Wilson. I'm the buyer of the apartment that your He stumbled before continuing, but anger was already seething in his voice. One that your ex-husband tried to sell me. Amelia leaned back in her chair, a cold smile playing on her lips. I understand, and I guess I know why you're calling. You understand. And do you understand what this means? I paid a $50,000 deposit last night for a property that, as it turns out, couldn't even be sold to me. Anger boiled over in Mark's voice. You have every right to sue, Mr. Wilson, Amelia replied calmly. I intend to do just that. She heard him exhale angrily. And does Tyler know what's coming for him? Amelia smirked. Not yet, but I think it will be a surprise for him. She ended the call and immediately sent a message to Chloe. The buyer is furious, preparing to sue Tyler. The response came quickly. Excellent. The more pressure, the faster he'll start to panic. That was exactly what Amelia wanted. Messages and calls. Tyler, suspecting nothing, confidently builds his plans. The phone buzzed with an incoming call. Tyler, Amelia smiled. She answered the call, making her voice as calm as possible. Amelia, when are you coming back? Tyler's voice sounded light, almost relaxed. In a couple of days. Why? Just need to discuss something. Oh, like what? Oh, you know, our next steps, how to divide the property. I've thought it all through. She barely suppressed a laugh. Thought it through? Oh, Tyler, you have no idea what's coming for you. Sounds interesting. Let's talk when I get back. Great, babe. I'm sure we can sort everything out amicably. Amicably? She almost laughed out loud. She imagined him sitting in his office, confident that everything was under control. He had no idea that the world he had built was about to come crashing down. She decided to wait. Say nothing. Let him feel like a winner. Let him make plans, fantasize about enjoying the money from the apartment sale. The moment when everything collapsed would be all the sweeter. The fall would be all the harder. She continued to respond to his messages calmly and without emotion. Baby, how's your trip going? Good, a bit busy, but overall fine. And you? Same here. I think we need to talk when you get back. You understand that this is for the best for both of us, right? Of course, Tyler. You always know what's best. She could imagine his smug smile, his self-satisfied sense of control. He thought he had won, but he didn't know that he was the pawn in her game. When the door slammed open with a loud thud, the air in the apartment became heavy, like before a storm. Tyler stormed in, his face red with anger, his jaw clenched so tightly it seemed his teeth might crack. What the hell did you do? His voice broke into a low growl. Amelia stood calmly by the kitchen counter, holding a cup of hot tea. She didn't even flinch. She just looked up, allowing him to see the icy calm in her eyes. "Hello, Tyler," she said, her voice steady, almost gentle. "Long day?" He threw his keys onto the console with such force that they clattered loudly against the wood, echoing the tension that filled the space between them. "Don't talk to me like that," he roared. "I just found out the deal fell through. The buyer is demanding his money back, and the realtor is threatening me." His hands clenched into fists, looking like a man who had always seen himself as the winner, now suddenly finding himself on the losing side. Amelia took a slow sip of her tea. "Yes, I got a call. Sounds like you're in trouble." He took a step closer, his breathing heavy. "You did this," he hissed, staring her down. "Of course not," she shrugged. "Your carelessness did." "What the hell does that mean?" "It means, Tyler," she paused to let him savor the silence that precedes a blow, "that the apartment has been in my name for several months." He froze. There was a look of confusion on his face, but it quickly turned to disbelief. He shook his head. "You're lying." Amelia pulled a folder from the counter and slowly opened it, revealing the documents. "Here's the refinancing agreement. Here's the application for the transfer of ownership. And here's your signature." Tyler swallowed hard. His eyes scanned the lines, and Amelia saw the realization slowly dawning on him. He had signed these papers himself, without questions, because he was sure he was in control. This can't be." His voice trembled. She watched him like a wild animal that had just been caged. "You can't sell what doesn't belong to you, Tyler," she said softly, "and now you're left with nothing." He was a man who had always held the situation in his hands, who was used to his word being law. And now? Now he looked broken. "This can't be happening," he muttered. "You couldn't have." He slumped onto the nearest chair, running his hands through his hair. Amelia watched him go through all the stages of accepting defeat. First, denial. He was still trying to find an explanation. How could this have happened? How could she have outsmarted him? Then anger. He jumped up, slamming his fist on the table. "You ruined everything. You're just jealous of me." "You..." But she didn't even blink. "I did to you what you've been doing to me all this time, Tyler. You manipulated me, but you didn't even notice that you ultimately trapped yourself." Anger flared in his eyes but quickly faded. Then, bargaining. "Listen," his voice suddenly became almost pleading. "Maybe we can find some kind of solution. Maybe I can..." "No," she cut him off sharply. This was not up for discussion. He took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of his nose. And finally, acceptance. He had lost. She closed the folder and stood up, making it clear that the conversation was over. "If you try anything else," she said, her voice low but firm, "I will sue you for fraud." Tyler looked at her, his lips trembling, but he said nothing. "I'm serious, Tyler. You should be glad I didn't do it sooner." His shoulders slumped. He had nothing more to say. He slowly turned around, heading for the door. But before leaving, he stopped, giving her one last look, confused, full of anger, but already powerless. "You'll regret this," he said softly. Amelia smiled. "I already do. I regret not doing it sooner." The door slammed shut, and with it, Tyler was gone. The next morning, Amelia woke up in an empty apartment. The silence was new but not frightening. Rather, it was liberating. The air no longer held his cologne, and there was no coffee mug on the kitchen counter. The space was finally hers. She sat down at the table, placing the divorce papers in front of her. documents that symbolized the end of everything that had once seemed solid and unshakable. The pen glided smoothly over the paper. Amelia Lawrence, her signature, the final period in their relationship. She put the documents in an envelope and pulled out her phone. "Chloe," she said confidently, more so than ever, "send him the papers and tell him there will be no negotiations." From that moment on, Tyler was just a name on the papers to her. Later that day, the phone rang. "Amelia, it's Nicole. We need to talk." She hadn't expected this, but she wasn't surprised. Nicole was probably in a panic. When they met at a cafe, Nicole looked like she hadn't slept all night. Red eyes, lips pressed tightly together, holding her phone like it was her last grip on reality. "You knew about this?" Her voice trembled. Amelia leaned back in her chair. "About what, exactly?" "About the apartment belonging to you. About Tyler not just divorcing you, but trying to leave you with nothing so we could start a new life." "Of course I knew. I'm not stupid." Nicole swallowed hard. "He told me everything was fine, that we had the money. But now, he's in debt. He's about to be sued, and he wanted me to help him." Amelia almost laughed. "And will you?" Nicole closed her eyes as if she was about to cry, but instead, she let out a short breath. "Number I left him." Now Amelia smiled. "Smart move." Nicole bit her lip. "I thought he loved me." Amelia shrugged. "I thought so too." They looked at each other. There was no more hostility in their gazes, only understanding. Nicole stood up first. "I hope you get everything you want from him." Amelia replied without looking away. "I already have." Nicole left, and Amelia felt a strange sense of relief. Tyler had betrayed them both, but each of them was now free. Tyler's fall was swift. Without the apartment, without money, without Nicole's support, he found himself in a real financial pit. The bank refused to extend his credit. The buyer he had promised the deal to was threatening to sue. And most importantly, his career was going down the drain. Once, Tyler was a man who always had everything under control. Now he was the one who had lost it all. Amelia found out that he had moved into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. All he had left was a suitcase of belongings and debt from the failed deal. The irony of it all. He tried to leave her with nothing. In the end, he was the one left with nothing. Late that evening, her phone rang. "Amelia." His voice was different, hoarse, broken. I was wrong. I made a mistake. Give me a chance. We can start over." Amelia looked out the window. There was no place for him in her life anymore. "You destroyed everything, Tyler. You didn't even try to save us." "I was an idiot. I was scared." "No, Tyler. You were greedy, and now you're reaping what you sowed." Silence. "Do you hate me?" Amelia thought about it. "Number, I'm grateful to you. You showed me who you really are." "Does that mean we have a chance?" She smiled. "Number, it means you're just a person from my past." She hung up, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly free. The evening was cool but light. For the first time in a long time, Amelia felt like she could breathe freely. A few days had passed since the last conversation with Tyler, and since then, he hadn't tried to contact her again. She looked at the suitcase containing documents, evidence, and memories of everything she had been through. Everything that reminded her of her old life. She opened the suitcase, took out a stack of old letters, wedding photos, and the very documents Tyler had tried to use to destroy her. One by one, she threw them into the fireplace. The paper caught fire, the flames eagerly consuming the last remnants of the past. Amelia watched as the fire destroyed what had once caused her pain, and with each crackling sheet, her heart grew lighter. When the last photograph turned to ash, she closed her eyes. Freedom, true, unconditional freedom. 2 months had passed. Everything had changed. Amelia had advanced in her career, taking on a position she had once only dreamed of. Without Tyler, without his neglect and constant manipulations, she could finally focus on herself. At meetings, her voice no longer trembled. She no longer tried to please everyone around her. Now she spoke confidently, firmly. People started looking at her differently. Colleagues, clients. Now they respected her. because now she respected herself. One day during lunch, Chloe approached her. "You have no idea how much you've changed," she said, smiling. "How so?" "Strong, independent, a person who can't be broken." Amelia smiled. "That's because there's no one left to be afraid of." And that was the truth. One evening, Amelia was walking along the waterfront. She stopped by the railing, looking at the city lights reflecting in the water. She remembered herself, the naive, trusting woman she used to be, the one Tyler could manipulate. That woman no longer existed. Now, standing before the city was a new Amelia, a woman who had won. She pulled out her phone, found Tyler's number, and hit delete. He was no longer a part of her life. She put the phone back in her pocket and stepped forward, toward a new future. Strong, free, because she had won.